grateful to you for throwing this celebration to commemorate your 28-year-old world-traveling son who finally has a full-time job. And also with a paycheck. Not a big paycheck, but it's the fringe benefits that really count. You know, just like we have at home, someone to clean your room, someone to do your laundry, someone to cook your meals. Our motto at the seminary is, why be a millionaire when you can live like one? Come on in and join the priesthood. It's been a great day, and tonight is going to be a great evening, so sit back and relax. I'd like to introduce Mike's siblings. His sister Julie and her husband John. If you would just stand, please. And Kelsey and Grace and Emma. Mike's brother Bob. And his brother Jim. And his sisters Chrissy and Sherry. There are a number of aunts and uncles. If you would just stand, please. I don't know all your names, and I don't want to mess them up, so if the aunts and uncles could please stand. Very good. And also Mike's godparents, Dennis and Marcia Stevens. And as we begin all programs, we need to hear a message from our sponsors. So Bob and Dee, if you would please come to the microphone. I offered to write Bob's speech for him tonight, but he wouldn't pay, so.
I paid, but he said you wouldn't want to hear what he had to say. I'd like to go first, but that's all right, because my wife said I could go first. And it's also the woman gets the last words anyway, so. I'm glad there's so many priests here tonight, because I've gone to Mass for 60 years now. It's 52 Sundays a year, 8 holidays a year. That's what it was back in the Baltimore Catechism. So I've gone to 60 homilies a year for 60 years. So I've listened to 3,600 homilies. So some of them were very, very good, outstanding homilies. Some of them were, very inspiring. But there was a few that, I was closing my eyes to meditate. And Steve would always give me the next attending. This all started about 28 years ago when Mike was born. It was a normal, healthy birth, but shortly thereafter it was discovered that he could not retain nourishment. He was placed in an incubator that was only accessible by those rubber gloves that you would put your hands into. The doctors advised that he would need surgery to remove the blockage in his esophagus. I stayed with Mike around the clock, with my hands on him in that incubator as they poked his arms and his head full of needles. He, of course, could not come to the intensive care room since she had just delivered. A wise friend said to me, keep laying your hands on him and pray to God and to raise Mike up to him. I laid my hands on him and continued to pray for a healing, and of course somewhat raised him up to God and made him try to cut a deal with God. As it turned out, Mike did not need the surgery and his esophagus was healed, and so God, if I cut a deal with you, here's my son for you tonight. We go into Mike's mid-years. In about the 7th or 8th grade, Mike was having an issue with challenging the establishment, authority, mediocrity with his teachers. I don't know if Father Greg is here tonight. But anyway, I sat down and tried to use some I sat down and tried to use some fatherly wisdom and said, Mike, you really need to build bridges with everyone you meet. I will never forget his reply. Dad, I don't burn bridges. I blow them up. Well, over the last 6 years of Mike's formation, he's truly learned to build bridges. He has built bridges with the 300 people that we have here tonight. He's built bridges with the people in Kenya, Uganda, Madagascar, Honduras, most of the states from here to the West Coast during his migration west last summer, and probably with 1,000 more people. But the greatest bridge he is building now is that bridge between Christ's body on earth, us, and our Heavenly Father. I asked Father Tom Johns for some words of wisdom. I said, Father Tom, I really need to know what to say tonight. And he said, go to the scriptures. So I really did, I was thinking about it a lot, and what really touched me, and it actually when I was driving home from here tonight, the scripture reading I thought of as, there's no greater deed a man can do than to lay down his life for another. And I believe Mike, along with all his other priest friends that we have in the diocese, have laid down their life for us so that we may continue to learn of God's love and to enjoy his promise of everlasting life with him in heaven. So I toast to you, Mike, my son, and to all the brother priests tonight.
Mike, you're going to be very disappointed because this was supposed to be a song and I was going to sing it to you. But Julie Brown couldn't help me out with music. I couldn't find a writer. So I have a poem. Lord, I give you my son today. I remember the day that he was born. My soul was filled, but my heart was torn. For my precious baby was in distress. I needed to trust you, Lord, and nothing less. I wanted to hold him close to me, but knew he was yours, and you could see. My real love would look to you and say, Lord, I give you my son today. The years passed and my son grew, but my heart always told me he belonged to you. And so through the good times and the bad, I give you my son and I just be glad. For the perfect love that only you could give would grow in my son and teach him to live a life full of compassion and loving care for all of your people everywhere. He was called to some places far away, and though I never wanted him to stray, I would trust in you and then would say, Lord, I give you my son today. My heart is filled with thanks to you for taking my son and seeing him through the hurts and pains along the way, and so, Lord, I give you my son today. You have brought him to such peace and joy. Now that he's a man and not a little boy, his eyes tell me that he has found his way. And so, Lord, I give you my son today.
I would ask one of Mike's friends and formators, Father Jim Oles, if you could come and lead us in prayer before dinner.
God, certainly at the center of this whole day with us, let us pause and place ourselves in his presence. Loving and gracious God, we thank you, praise you for all the many gifts that you continue to give us over and over again. Today we are especially grateful for the gift of priesthood and the gift of Father Mike. Your divine providence has brought him to this day and has supported and has sustained him along the way. But we pray that your Holy Spirit will continue to support him throughout his priestly life. We ask your blessing on his parents, his family, and for all who have helped Mike to persevere and to discern his vocation. We ask you to bless us who are gathered here tonight, bless the food we are about to share, and bless us as we share it through Christ our Lord.
Amen. Dinner will be served shortly. Eat bountifully because there is a long program ahead of us.
Oh, you're gonna come and show
And Father Charlie Strickler, or Father Charlie Dietrich, who will begin to sign Mike's paycheck come June. Father Dietrich is pastor of St. Barnabas in Northfield, where Mike is going to report for work, we hope. And also, Father Frank Kosum, are you here, Father Kosum? The pastor of St. Jude in Elyria, where Mike serves his diaconate. And as long as we're doing it, why don't all of the priests that are here please stand and we'll acknowledge everybody. Way to go. I don't know who's working tonight, but most of them are here, so whoever went to church got shortchanged, that's for sure. We have a number of people who Mike has requested to speak tonight, and to MC that program, I would like to call on Father Tom Johns, who is the pastor of St. John Vianney in Mentor, where Mike served his deacon internship, and where the folks at St. John Vianney are a good bit responsible for Mike being where he's at today. Father Johns. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We taught Mike a lot at our parish, but Mike also taught us a lot, and in particular, he taught me how to do PowerPoint. So I tried to put together this PowerPoint for all of us tonight. I think we all know from Mike's invitation that this is an image that meant a lot to him. It's Rembrandt's painting of the prodigal son. And in St. Luke's Gospel, we are told that when the prodigal son returned, St. Luke tells us that they celebrated with a feast. And that's what we did today. We started with a feast down at the cathedral this morning. And we continue the feast tonight. So these are some of the pictures from this morning. They came out a little bit dark. And as Bishop Lennon began the ordination today and did something unusual, he introduced to the whole cathedral Mike's family. And this is some of Mike's family that was at Mike's graduation just the other night at the seminary. I think it's John and Julie on the ends, and then Bob and Dee are there, and then some of Mike's nieces. There's Bob and Dee at his deacon ordination. A little better. And there's Mike with his family, his brother Bob on this end, and Jim on that end, his brother-in-law John on the top, and then Christy, Julie, and Sherry on the bottom. So that's Mike's family if you have not yet met them. One of the things that Mike wanted me to do was to introduce to you another family that has become important to him since he joined the seminary, and that's the family of priests that have meant a lot to Mike. So my job is to introduce these priests to you tonight. Each of them are just going to talk for maybe 2 minutes, and I have a little timer up here that'll stop us at about 3. But each of them are just going to tell one funny story about Mike, and there's plenty of them. And then they're each going to talk about one priestly quality that Mike has. And mine's just going to be a little bit longer because I'm introducing it. My name is Father Tom Johns, and as Brian told you, I was Mike's supervisor at St. John Vianney's parish 2 years ago, and I was very privileged to work with him for a year, along with Father Betters and Father Tony and Father Klein. So they're in that picture with Mike and I. And I guess the priestly quality
that I would pick out for Mike, and it's a wonderful gift that he brings to the priesthood, is he appreciates both the joys and the struggles of family life. And every priest deals with families, and you're with them at the best of times and the worst of times. One of the best things you bring to the priesthood is you can appreciate the joys and the struggles. And this is Mike's baptism day, and Bob mentioned that Mike was born with that serious concern, and if you got a close look at this picture, you'll see that the side of his head was all shaved and ready for the surgery. And they didn't have to do the surgery after Bob prayed, but there's this little baby on baptism day with all the hair gone on the side of the head. And that was a true story, that he was in serious condition, but through the prayers of a loving dad, he came through that, and a gracious God. And I think one of the great things that Mike's family taught him is the value of the Catholic faith. So this is his baptism day, and his godparents are right over here. So that's the day he was baptized. This is Mike on his first communion day, and his parents taught him to pray. And we have a devotion to the Blessed Mother. There's a rosary in his hand, and this is Mike walking in to make his first Holy Communion. And that would be probably about 20 years ago. But that's one of the great gifts that his family gave him. This is Mike on his confirmation day, I believe, being confirmed by Bishop Quinn. And his family gave him that smile. And this is Mike's baby picture, and it's a smile that we've all come to know and love. They taught him to be competitive, and we know him to be competitive. They taught him to love children, and anybody knows Mike knows that he not only loves children, but he takes delight in children, and you can just see it on his face at this young age. And this is Mike with some children in Guatemala. This is Mike teaching the children at All Saints School, which is our parish school, and he took them up on the hill and taught the children religion, and they loved it every week. This is Mike with two of his nieces on his deacon ordination. Another thing that I think his family taught him is to take pride in his accomplishments, and this is probably the Pinewood Derby when he was a Cub Scout. And they taught him the value of an education. So this is Mike graduating the other night from St. Mary's Seminary. Now that's his graduation picture with Brian, who's emceeing tonight, and Brian's wife, Marilyn. But they did. They taught him the value of an education. They taught him how to use tools. So this is Michael learning how to play with a screwdriver. And I think we all know that Michael loves the outdoors. Most kids rode a bike to school, but Mike rode a horse to school. But he does that. He loves the outdoors, and he loves God's creation and all God's creatures. This is Mike with his pet duck. Not too many people had a duck, but Mike had a duck, and he seemed to take real good care of it. And he even taught it how to play the piano. We all know that Mike likes music, and so he made sure the duck knew how to play. But then, I don't know what happened. When he went to Africa, this was a rabbit that he cooked. And he looks pretty happy about doing that. And his family taught him to take a nap. And he knows that every once in a while you need to take a nap. And this is a lesson he learned well. And again, there's the dog and Mike taking a nap. And then Dee, a couple weeks ago, told me that Mike came home on a Sunday and he was exhausted. And he wanted to go out to the deck and say his prayers. So here's Mike saying his prayers. Still taking a nap. He also taught him how to dress. People say that he dresses in unusual clothes. I was going to say that's the first chasuble he designed. And they taught him to eat. So here's this little kid that couldn't eat as a baby. Sure made up for that. And look at that smile. It's still the same smile you got. And that's probably back when it's only about 13 candles there. 16? And he does have a good appetite. Look at the plate of ribs there. I think he did eat them all. And they taught him to hang out with some interesting people. So this is Mike and his friend Goofy. And this is the day that Mike and his brothers were out on the boat. And Mike began to hear the call. And I was just struck with that. You know, in the Gospels we're told the brothers, Peter and Andrew, James and John, were out on the boat. And they heard the call. And they were hard at it all night with Goofy. And he caught one. So it was then that he did hear the Lord's call to become a fisher of men. And each of us, I'm sure, can tell stories about some wonderful things that he's done and people that he has brought to God just in a short time in the seminary. I'll just give you one quick one. This is typical of the goodness of Mike Deng. When Mike was at our parish, he met a young man in the parish that had leukemia. And he was the same age as Mike, and Mike got to be friends with them. And I remember when Pope John Paul died at Mass, I blessed Mike and this young man Brian, and we prayed that through the intercession of Pope John Paul, maybe a miracle would work, and that Brian would be saved from leukemia. And it didn't work out. Brian died in the past year. But one of the things that meant so much to this family is Mike went down to Columbus to visit Brian. He was going through experimental treatment to get rid of his leukemia. And not only did he go down there, but he shaved his head, to go down there and to support Brian. And I remember Mike gave Brian a blessing, and then Brian gave Mike a blessing. And it meant a lot to his family and to a lot of people in the parish. That's the kind of stuff that Mike Deng does all the time, and I'm sure each and every one of you can tell stories like that. So what I'm going to do is invite the first person up to tell some stories. I think a lot of you know him. It's Father Dave Ireland, who's the pastor of St. Gregory's Parish in South Euclid. Thanks, Father.
Mike and I go way back to the days of Holy Family when he was just a little one. Oh my. We were both pretty young then. But I remember a couple of stories, and I could tell the story about when Mike's dad was going to try to kill us, on the four-wheeler. But I'm not going to tell that story, but you can ask Bob about that later. But I remember one time we had taken the servers to Geauga Lake, as was the custom, and Mike wanted to go on the Texas Twister, and nobody, his friends were pretty smart, they didn't want to go. So he comes up to me and he says, "Father, hey, would you go on this with me?" And I said, "Well, sure, Mike," because I didn't really see what the thing did. And as it goes and does its thing, and I'm standing now upside down, I'm thinking, "Mike, when I get you off this thing, you're dead, man." But anyway, another time, Mike was always kind of a restless spirit. He always kind of wanted to wander off and do things and see things. We had gone to Denver. Our youth group went to Denver for the World Youth Day, and we had taken our 20-mile walk, which seemed more like 40, on the way to this Cherry Creek reservation where we were going to camp out and meet the Pope the next day. Well, anyway, so we get there finally. I ended up having to carry some of Mike's stuff, by the way. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, so we get there, and so we decide Mike wanders off because he's hungry or something. He still eats a lot. And so he wanders off, and we move camp. So all of a sudden, where's Mike? What happened to Mike? And Dee was there too, but she was at the hotel because, one was not feeling so well. Anyway, how am I going to tell Dee that I've lost her son, So anyway, we finally found Mike, and I was really happy to do that. And that good shepherd, going after the lost sheep really hit hard with me on that time. But this restless spirit, as he began to go on throughout his life, he began to wrestle with the Spirit, I think, as he began to think more and more about his vocation. I remember one night, this was not too long ago. I was in East Lake, and Mike called me and he says, "Hey, Father, what you doing?" I said, "Well, it's about 10 o'clock. I'm kind of getting ready for bed. I was already in my jammies and stuff." And he says, "Hey, can we get together and talk?" I said, "Well, sure, Mike. When? Tonight." All right. So I said, "Well, sure, Mike. Well, where are you?" "Parma." I said, "Parma, East Lake, 45 minutes." "Okay, sure, come on over." So we ended up going out to a winery, and on the way there, Mike says, "Well, what would happen? What would you think if I told you that I really thought that I had a vocation and I was going to enter the seminary?" And I said, "Mike, it's about time." Because ever since he was a kid, a server, I always thought that he had a vocation. And as he went on through the seminary, and he began to take this restless spirit, and he wrestled with the Spirit, he finally got to the point that he was resting with the Spirit. And he was very docile to the Spirit. And that's a great priestly quality, docility to the Holy Spirit. And Mike truly has that. Over the years that I have known him, I've seen him grow so wonderfully. And to sit down and to talk with him, he's a very spiritual man, and he's going to do so many wonderful things. I've just been so proud of him and so happy to see how he's grown and how he's developed and how he truly trusts and loves the Lord. So we're all very thankful to you, Father, and we wish our prayers and best wishes.
And our next speaker is Mike's cousin, Father Vince Hawk.
Mike, there's so many things that are running through my mind right now. And when Brian called and asked me to give this talk, there were so many stories that came to mind. But I think the story that came to mind first was the story you talked about in the Universe Bulletin in your interview there, with Bobby showing up to the Where Are You Going retreat. I remember that night I was in the dining room and I hear the door of the dining room open, and I look over and I think, "That looks like Bobby Dank." And then he says, "Hey, Vince, what's going on?" I'm like, "That is Bobby Dank," And then a little while later, I was off to greet Bishop Pilla and take him to the place we were gathering for prayer, and I'm walking down the hall, and all the lights were off, and it was dark, and there's this person walking down the hall. And I said, "Boy, that looks like Mike Dank." And I said, "But don't you think Bobby would tell me that Mike was coming? Don't you think Mike would tell me that Mike was coming?" But anyway, all these things were running through my mind, and he's like, "Hey, Vince, Mike Dank." And I'm like, "Yeah, wow." And so Mike was actually late for registering for that retreat. He was actually late to show up for that retreat. And I think each time that he was supposed to check into the seminary, he might have been late. So, Charlie, I don't know. Mike, I don't know how you got through the seminary after I left. Because I remember that year that we were both there together. Mike would call me, "Vince, I've lost this. Vince, I think you need to keep a set of my keys. So Charlie, I've got some keys for you in case he locks himself out of the car." Mike, the thing that came to mind though for me was faithfulness. Maybe not always to the clock or to the calendar, but faithfulness. Faithfulness to family, faithfulness to friends, faithfulness to the people you're called to serve. Father John's talked about Brian, and I was going to do that too, because that story just really hit me in the heart when you went to visit Brian in Columbus before your trip. And when you shared that story, that emotion, that tenderness, you see it in so many aspects of your life. You see it with your nieces, Kelsey and Grace, Emma. You see it with the rest of the family. So what a great blessing. So that faithfulness to prayer, even though you might rest in it a little bit, it's a good thing. You see it so often. So that when Father John said, think of a thing or a phrase or a word that's priestly for Michael, faithfulness came up. Although not to that clock or the calendar necessarily. But what a blessing it has been for me to walk with you these past years, and to now not only call you cousin, but brother.
our next speaker is Father Jim Oles, who's the pastor of St. Vincent de Paul Parish in Elyria, who was one of Mike's spiritual directors while he was in the seminary.
When Brian called me to speak and said that, I thought, well, this is going to be like a roast of Mike, but everything that I know I've heard either in the confessional or in my office as a spiritual director. So you're safe, Mike. I can't say a thing. Mike, I think I just want to say when I think of you as a priest, the one word that comes to my mind is compassion. The Lord has given you over these last 5 years a very heart-like Christ, a Christ-like heart that's filled with compassion that you, as you would reflect with me after visiting an Integral Brotherhood home or a hospital or a classroom in the school or a nursing home. Mike was so excited about priestly life that he visited those places and came back to share it. And so, Mike, I just think you're going to bring the heart of Christ in a very compassionate way to many people. The church is indeed blessed to have you as a priest. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Father John Brana, who is the Associate Pastor at St. Francis Sales Parish in Parma, and has also served as a spiritual director for Mike. My contact with Mike, my friendship with Mike, goes back just a few years, and I used to spend, and still do spend a lot of time at the seminary. And so my first view of Mike was from a distance, and my initial impression of Mike, how wrong I was that he was quiet, reserved, almost shy or reticent, and one who didn't stand out in the crowd. But then, the seminary produced a video for vocations, and Mike was featured in that, racing around on an ATV vehicle, like a madman, wild. You could just see the look in his face, crazy. And the worst thing was, this recklessness, he didn't have a helmet on, and I'm sure caused much grief and sorrow to his mother. But anyhow, that was a later impression I got of Mike. And in spite of that recklessness, to his credit, I would say this. From my experience of being a spiritual director, that in one who seriously desires to develop a deep and a personal relationship with the Lord, being adventuresome, being willing to take risks, and being ready to abandon oneself to the experience no matter what the cost, these are very, very good qualities. Mike, you've begun well. Carry on. And our next speaker is Father Bob Stack, who's also been a friend of Mike for a long time, and he's the pastor of St. Ambrose Parish in Brunswick and former vocation director for the Diocese of Cleveland.
I've had the good fortune of knowing Mike. As you run to UB, I was the one that providentially walked through my office right when Mike was calling to come to that Where Are You Going retreat. And from those very first moments of getting to know Mike, not only on the phone, you could tell there was a certain, let's just say, spontaneity, but there was also a real creativity about him. And I think that was one of the things that Mike and I really connected with, especially in our early years, as he helped me to shape the fest. And there's some unknown fest stories, and Brian, as you hear the story, you'll be kind of amazed that Mike is actually getting ordained today. One of the stories that can be told, Tales from the Crypt of the Fest, is after one of the fests, a couple days after the fest, we were cleaning up, and the whole fest crew was very, very, very tired, exhausted. And so Mike, in his wonderful spirit, could be nowhere to be found, nowhere literally to be found. And here all along, what Mike was doing was taking his pickup truck. You know, he drives a pickup truck. And he put in the back bed of his pickup truck a heavy piece of plastic, and then took it upon himself to find hoses that he could drain all the hot water out of the seminary. And there Mike could be found sitting on the top of the hill in his quasi-hot tub, which he of course made for everyone to share. Now I grew up in Parma too, and I don't know where he learned that. Anyhow, if that wasn't good enough, after the water started to cool down from this very restful hot tub, they turned that into a slip and slide down the back hill. Brother Johns, if you want to use that for the All Saints students next year, feel free. Mike is an expert at that. But that was a wonderful story of just talking about creativity, talking about taking the back of a pickup truck, a piece of plastic, and hot water. The other side of the story, Brian, you'll especially appreciate this. For those of you who are priests, you'll appreciate this very much. The more humorous part of this whole story for me was Father Weber the next morning trying to figure out why there was no hot water. But I think that story, and maybe its simple story, but really speaks to the creativity, the imagination that Mike brings to the priesthood. And certainly that was one of the things that really helped me as we were shaping this thing called the fest. And it was trying to be a creative and imaginative way to bring the gospel to life in our time for the young people. And Mike was such an important part of trying to bring this message of the gospel to literally the thousands that come today. And so I know with great confidence, Mike, that that's going to be a great gift that you're going to bring for the generations to come. Your imagination, your creativity, your literal ability to take almost nothing and use it as a way of bringing people together and bringing people together in the name of the Lord. That'll be a great blessing for all of us.
And our next speaker is Father David Blind, who just got a new assignment as the associate pastor of St. Francis de Sales in Portage Lakes. And David was at St. Barnabas, so I think Mike is going to be resuming work that David began there.
What work?
I see Damien found the bar. Okay, good job. All right. Did you see him walk all the way around the perimeter? I'm very impressed. But anyway, it's not like this place is legendary for him. But anyway, this I guess out of respect to my boy, I had to write this down because I can't possibly get it in 2 minutes and 20 seconds unless it's written down. So, but I guess, the first thing that comes to mind is when I think of Father Michael Dink, it's just the thought that I'm glad this Mike Dink thing is over because no offense to Bob and Dee and Jim and all the others, but you guys don't have enough syllables into your names, and Mike Dink doesn't do anything. So it's like Mike Dink. It just kind of just cuts you off. So the Father will help round it off a little bit. And it'll be a very good thing because it started making me think of this Father Mike Dink and who is he? And tell me if not one person in here hasn't gone to any place you've been to and somebody knows him. Is that true? I mean, I swear, every place I go, somehow somebody knows Mike Dink. They have a story about it, they know something, oh, don't you know, I met him at this retreat or that retreat. And I kept thinking about what was important, and I suppose that it comes down to understanding why people are attracted to him as who he is. And whether it is his parents or priests or prodigal people all together, somehow children, whether from Africa or special needs kids in different ways, whatever it is, somehow there's a comfortability about him. When I was told by Father Carlin about the importance of an old saying about priesthood, that the two most what was the word? The priesthood. How does it go? I'm very good. The
Two you dislike the most.
two priests you dislike the most. The one who
the one who was there before you, and the one who comes after.
The one who's there before you, and the one who comes after you. I was before you. You're after me. Okay. But I have to tell you, in spite of everything, I think everything everybody's saying is very consistent to the truth of who you are. I think the beauty of it is that you are so genuine in your emotional feelings, your love is right there in the service for the world. But I don't think you just happen to find it. I think part of the orderliness, the part that likes to play with their nieces until you wind them up and then leave them with their parents, to the points of the fact that they speak of the glory of having your hair shaved, but the reality is out of doing it for Brian, your love for him, that's true, but you really did it just to aggravate your mother. And it really still does. It still drives you nuts. But all that being said, I think there's something true about where you're going. And Barnabas is truly the mean son of encouragement. And I think the greatest gift that you have offered to people you've opened your life to, myself included, is the fact that you are a person who encourages. Probably because you have been through just about everything you want to go through in life, in fun and in struggles. Oh, but in it you are who you are. And I don't think it happened by accident. It happened because your parents, you learned how to encourage others because of their struggles in life and how they held on to you from the day of birth to keep you in prayer and carry you through all this. Your parents, your family, all of us aside, you needed all this to get through it, sure. But this is what you needed the most. And you are the priest you are because of the love that they have given to you. And that will shape everything you do at Barnabas. The hardest day of my life was 2 weeks ago leaving Barnabas. The greatest joy was knowing when I walked out that door, I didn't have to worry about the people. I don't have to worry about it at all. Because you will give them everything that they need. And they will give you more love than you can imagine.
Our next speaker is Father David Walkowiak, who is president. Father David Walkowiak, who is president.
Dean of Students, and I like to say that I'm in charge of student morale, trying to make sure that everybody is doing well. And so there's a lot of things that appear to be funny from one point of view that from perhaps the dean's view they're not quite so funny. I will share a few quick vignettes. They're not really stories, but early on in his time at the seminary, Mike sent me an email with a video clip of a young Polish breakdancer spinning on his head like a top in front of Pope John Paul II. And I looked at this thing and I figured, is he going to try to do this? I think his head was pulled up. And then I thought maybe he's going to get a troop of seminarians to become breakdancers, spinning on their heads. You know, the four tops or whatever. The St. Mary Spinners. And I thought that they'd be spinning around, they could entertain Father Tift. You know, Mike is a very thoughtful man, and when I turned 50, he sent me a birthday card. There were some very nice thoughts expressed in the birthday card, and he told me he was going to get me a present. Well, I thought this was pretty good because for a faculty member to get a present from a seminarian is about as common as 2.5 feet of snow on Easter Sunday. So I read on, and lo and behold, what was the gift that Mike was going to give me? It was going to be a staff member shirt from the fest. Mike never gave me the shirt. He reasoned that I probably wouldn't want to wear a purple shirt. Finally, I want to say that Mike has, what he brought out in me is my more peaceful and non-aggressive qualities in the area of paintball. I was also in charge of the student activity staff, and somebody had the bright idea that the seminarians should go and shoot each other with paintballs. And I thought I spiked that idea rather handily. I said, you know, it seems to be rather violent, and it's bringing out aggressive tendencies, and the idea of seminarians shooting each other with things that look like guns. I said, I don't think this is a good idea, and I thought that was the end of it. Well, every few days I'd get another sheaf of papers underneath my door telling me about the joys and benefits of paintball. Paintball builds team spirit. Paintball helps people to work together to achieve a common goal. Paintball relieves stress and tension. Paintball can prevent male pattern baldness. Paintball can prevent dementia. I mean, this just about anything. It was the universal panacea for everything. So ultimately, they were allowed to go play paintball, and Mike wanted me to go. And there's no way any faculty member should get near any seminarian, much less Mike Dank, if they're holding a paintball. I think what I want to say, though, in conclusion about priestly qualities would be, whether Mike is jumping out of an airplane or shooting somebody with paintballs or breakdancing, whatever it may be, maybe going on a Catholic Relief Services tour or his parish assignment or praying or discernment, whatever it be, I think that he's very committed to what he's doing. There's an old spiritual axiom in Latin that goes, age quod agis, do what you're doing. And I think that really typifies Mike. He really gets into whatever he's doing. He gives it 100%. And we can certainly see how good this will be for the people that he sent to serve. So I'm sure that St. Barnabas will be blessed in coming forward and accepting Mike as a new parochial vicar. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Father Michael B. Smith, the pastor of Immaculate Conception Parish in Akron. And Michael B. was Michael Dank's first supervisor when he entered St. Mary's Seminary.
Thank you, Tom. I've known Dr. Houlihan since 1969. He has told me I have 2 to 3 minutes. 2 minutes. He knows I can go much longer. I originally told Brian that the characteristic that I most admired in Father Mike Dank was his prudence.
What?
That died this morning in the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist. Because I don't know how many of you people noticed, but when it came time for these 4 deacons to be examined by the bishop, as soon as that pillow was put down in front of Bishop Lennon, Mike just scampered right up there and held down and he was ready to go. So much for prudence. Scratch that one. It is my privilege to serve as a pastoral education supervisor for St. Mary's Seminary. And it was my privilege, our pastoral associate Melissa Keegan will agree, that it was a great honor to be a part of Michael's formation. Our parish is located in the inner city. It's a tough neighborhood. And Michael handled himself with great aplomb. When I told him that the house across the street from the rectory was a drug house, he respected that. I told him that I had tried to get these people to advertise in the parish bulletin. Stop over after the noon mass, get a nickel bag, have a nice day. They declined. Part of my job as a pastoral supervisor is to try to instruct seminarians in the stuff that they never learn in the seminary. Our parish has 30 years of deferred maintenance, and I remember one of Michael's principal tasks was to help me stain and garnish the new replacement windows that were being put into the rectory. That picture that you saw of him as a small child with a toolbox, I took that picture. It's part of my job to remind the seminarians that they are going to need to be jacks of all trades and should not be beneath doing some fix-up work. This is not only a great example of humility, but also is a sign to the people of the parish that we're prepared to do more than just what's called leadership. We're prepared to roll up our sleeves and get down and dirty with the things that are necessary in parish stewardship. And I admire Mike for being able to do that and putting up with me for an entire year. How long was that? I'm good. God bless you, Mike. The people in beautiful downtown Kenmore are still praying for you and pray for all the best. Thank you.
Our our next speaker is Father Bob McCreary, one of the members of the formation team at Borromeo Seminary, and a member of the Capuchin community.
Mike and I studied some pretty serious stuff this year, some difficult material on humanity of Christ and mysticism, and I just want to say to Mike that he has the sweetest blank book I ever saw. One of our professors used to say, of another professor, he certainly meant whatever he said, So. Mike and I studied this, some of the great teachers, St. Bernard Francis, Bonaventure, Ignatius, and the wonderful studies that we did, 2 studies. And it was on the humanity that can be close to God. It's really something that Mike's really interested in, down deep, when you know his heart, how humanity can be close to God. And I want to read a little Sufi mystic poem about God, and then draw a little conclusion for you, Mike, tonight. God is not a God of names for children. God is not a God of names, not a God of don'ts. He's not a God of weird things, but a God of only 4 words. And these words he constantly repeats: come dance with me. So for a priest, in the image of Yahweh in the Old Testament, in the book of the prophet Zephaniah, the Yahweh shall dance with you as a festival. And we had the great dance of your ordination today into Christ Jesus, the high priest. And now you have a dance, Michael, and the dance is not with one partner, but with so many beautiful partners. You've already begun that dance, but now it gets even more beautiful. And how important it is for you to realize the joy that we have as brothers in the priesthood, the dance of our Lord Jesus Christ with you, and to know how you'll love the people and you'll dance with them the beautiful song that humanity is deeply loved by a God who dances, and you represent that dance.
And our next speaker is one of the priests that lives at St. John Vianney's with me, the founding pastor of St. John Vianney's, Father Robert Klein, who will celebrate next year 60 years as a priest. And he's been a good friend of mine.
It's interesting that sometimes a mystery is solved, you don't know exactly how it was. But Bob Stick resolved the mystery. Sometime last year, I was at the seminary, and I needed a ride back to St. John Vianney. Well, that happens on occasion, but not too often. Nevertheless, I had asked Mike if he would be willing to take me back to the St. John Vianney. And he said very quickly, oh, sure. And then I had to wait for a while. And he said, oh, by the way, he said, I can't do it. And he said, would you mind if I got a backup for you? So I said, that's all right. And I couldn't understand why he didn't want me to ride in his pickup truck. And now I know the reason. It was loaded with all kinds of stuff. And, but nevertheless, it proved a little bit of a lesson. If you're going to drive in a pickup, you better have a good backup. Mike was a person, or is a person, as we all have seen tonight, as a man filled with generosity. He smiles easily. He doesn't know what the word no means. He says, I'll do it. So I think that's one of his greatest qualities. He said that to the Lord, I'll do it. And the Lord said today, now you will show that you can do it. So God bless you, Mike. many, many happy years to you.
And one of the other priests at St. John Vianney's that worked with Mike, in addition to Father Klein and myself, is Father John Betters. And Father John Betters has been the associate at St. John Vianney's for the last 4 years. And he's preparing to go to take Damien's place at St. Mary's Hudson. And he'll be leaving St. John Vianney's. And we had a farewell party for Father Betters last night. And Mike came to it and got a chance to see how much people love their priests and appreciate the ministry that they do. So Father Betters is going to offer a reflection.
One of the greatest things that happened the year that Mike lived with us at the seminary, we were the youngest rectory in the diocese. If you average our age, we became the youngest. There were 4 or 3 of us. That was before Father Klein moved in. Sorry. But Mike added to our youthfulness, and it was, we always call that the golden year of St. John Vianney, because the 4 of us would always gather at night and have a drink and watch TV and just talk and share stories. But Mike would always start out, he would never join us at 10 o'clock. He would always join us around 10:15. And around 10:15, or between 10 and 10:15, he would be in the church praying. And this one night, the phone rang at 10, and I said, Tom, oh God, I hope it's not sick call. It's going to be a good CSI tonight. And so he goes into his room to get the phone, and he's like, yes, speak up, I can't hear you. It's Mike whispering. And Mike Tom walks out, and I said, who was it? And he said, it's Mike. He's hiding under a pew in the church. The church is being robbed right now. So Tony calls the police. Tom goes around the front and apprehends this big guy who was coming out. And I decided to go in the church. And Mike is in it. I don't see Mike. And I turn on the lights. And I see this little lady running away from the candle money box. And I thought it was our school principal. So then I said, what are you doing in here? She says, oh, I'm just praying. I said, well, the church is all locked up. She's like, oh no, I got it. And then all of a sudden, Mike pops out of a pew. She dashes across the church. I'm chasing her. Mike's chasing her. Superman saving the church. So Mike and I stop her at the door right out to the side, and she drops something. And I said, Mike, don't pick that up. That's evidence. I want to see inside. But I tell that story because it's the most famous. You know, Mike ended up having to go to court with Father Johns and with the prosecutors, and they only got away with $6. It was all over $6. But Mike and Father Johns both talked about how we need to offer some compassion to those people and do that. But it occurred to me that while Mike and Tony, Tom, and I would be in the room drinking and watching TV, Mike was praying, and that was a common experience for me. And anyone who had the privilege of locking up the church at night, always common Mike praying. And he comes out to see us a lot, and he always asks, hey John, if I have your key, I want to go to the church and pray. So I think he's a man of great prayer, and it was right in the middle of my 4-year assignment that he reminded me of the importance of prayer, and something Bishop Lennon spoke very much. And I was very honored to have him at my party last night. That was just awesome. The night before he got ordained, he was with us, and that was just a great experience. And I know I'm probably going to go over, but there's an awesome story. There were several families there who were from our school, and they came over afterwards to have a beer with us, Mike, Tom, and I, and they said, you know, we've always been the kind of parents who weren't sure we wanted our kids to be priests. You know, we encourage vocations, but, you know, not our sons. And when we saw the way the 3 of you and the fraternity you offer to each other, we're going to go home and encourage our sons to be priests. So Mike and Tom and I and Tony, he's sitting right there. If you see Tony, he's not really there. We're just pretending he's there. Those were the golden years for that, Mike. And by the way, Mike's going to be doing the 5:30 Mass in Hudson every other week on Sundays. His mom already committed him for it. Thank you, Mike. Every other week on Sunday, 5:30. He says. Okay, our next speaker is
Father Mike Woost, who's on the faculty of St. Mary's Seminary, and I think when Father Wakowiak went back into parish work, Father Mike became Mike Dang's faculty advisor, or formation advisor.
Brian told me 2 minutes. I've never spoken 2 minutes in my life. And what scares me is tonight I found out that that puts me in the same category as Dave Blind and Michael B. Smith. So out of holy obedience, I wrote this, which I never do. For you, Mike. I'm going to forego the story about how in my last class, actually your last class of the seminary, the class that Ed Patrick and I have taught for the past semester, you tried to schedule your final project after the course had finished. I won't talk about that. But Mike, I think tonight I'm the last of your priest brothers to speak. There's a couple more speakers, but I'm the last of your priest brothers to speak. And my reflections that I offer to you tonight, I think are a reminder on our behalf to you as you begin your priestly ministry, and also prayer. Michael, the people of God expect their priest to be a person of prayer. The people of God have the right to be served by a priest who strives to be holy, to be good, gentle, humble, and loving. The people of God are blessed when their priest is both a passionate prayer and one who thirsts for holiness. Such a priest is a seeker of the mystery, one who pursues God because he knows himself as pursued by the divine lover. Such a seeker looks for God under every rock and hard place, by every bush that has the potential to burn, in every awestruck, confused, or wrinkled human face. The seeker of mystery aches to embrace grace and to be embraced by it, to name grace and to be named by it. For in doing so, he will be better able to assist the people whom he serves to embrace and name God, both present and active in their own lives. Michael, you are such a seeker. And now the treasure field of this great adventure has expanded. Seek the mystery in every infant's heartbeat you feel as you anoint them at baptism, in every fragrant Christian whom you chrismate at the great vigil, in every bit of bread and drop of wine become Christ for us in your hands. Seek the mystery in every tearful sigh of relief you hear coming from an unburdened heart in reconciliation, in every gaze of love you see shared between woman and man joined in marriage, in every feeble hand you hold of God's sons and daughters who slip from this life into life eternal. Seek the mystery through, with, and in every moment, place, and person. For God, the great mystery, is that near, straining with ever watchful eye, waiting to run, and longing to embrace the Son come home with the Father's boundless love. Remember, Michael, O priest of Jesus, his unbroken promise. Those who seek will find. Remember, O seeker of the mystery, God will not disappoint. Michael, ad multos annos.
As Father Mike said, these men that I just had speak to you are the priests that have meant a lot to him over his years of formation. And Mike picked out, God willing, 2 future priests that have been great support to him while he was a student. And the first one is Joe Brancatelli, who was the seminary intern at St. John Vianney's the year after Mike left. So Joe was at St. John Vianney's also.
Son of your parents.
Well, how many stories can I tell? Mike, you've been such an intimate friend of mine. We've been through a lot of good times, a lot of bad times. But the one characteristic that I would describe Mike as having is wisdom. When we were in Africa together, we decided to play a little game. You know that when you were little kids, you went to the animal farm and you got to touch those animals? Well, Mike and I decided to play the game, how many exotic animals could we touch? Well, I got to touch some bulls and he got to touch some lizards. Well, Mike probably would have won the game for a probably 500-pound warthog, who Mike got within about, I would say about maybe 3 or 4 inches of touching. And this 300-pound warthog, probably 500 pounds, was stood up to our chest, turned around and snarled and started, was about to chase Mike. Mike resisted, and it was wisely that he did it because I was near him, and there would probably been a warthog chasing one of us, hopefully him more than me. The other story that I want to tell about how good Mike is with his words and actions. About a year ago, I was going through a little crisis with myself, a spiritual, emotional, and I was, with the wisdom of the Holy really struggling with a lot of things. And him and I were talking, and Mike called me and said to me, and after we told him all the things that were going wrong with me, he looked at me and goes, Joe, you need to go to confession. You need to get back with God. And it was just the words I needed to hear. He didn't try to sugarcoat everything. He just told me what it needed to be said. And I have to say that probably saved my vocation. And I got to save his vocation to some extent. When he decided to go for a 4-day vacation instead of coming to the seminary, I got to tell him that he is to be a priest. And that he is to set his sail on the priesthood, but he couldn't just go through the waters without a sail, without a direction. He had a goal for the priesthood. He had to be on fire for the priesthood. And they couldn't go into the priesthood lukewarm, but hot for it. And Mike, you are hot for the priesthood. You're on fire, and I can't wait to be just not only your friend, your brother, my brother priest, with you for as long as we live. Thank you, Mike.
I was going to say the next speaker is Bishop Lennon. Our next speaker is one of Mike's other friends from the seminary, Mike McCandless.
If any of you have seen the sheet that is passed out tonight with the speakers, you will notice that I'm the last one. I don't hear an applause. I would certainly hear one. There we go. I'll make this very quick. Mike decided to go on a month's journey out west a few summers back. He popped into his truck, pulled out the passenger seat, threw it off in his garage so he could put a sleeping bed down in his passenger side of his truck cab and slept there at night, but drove across country, and at the same time I happened to be driving across country to deliver a car in California for some friends of mine. Where else did Mike and I want to meet up but the Grand Canyon? Mike loves nature, I love nature. We thought, let's meet up at the Grand Canyon, it'd be a great time. We get there, we meet the Grand Canyon. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're like, well, let's do this. Let's just hike down to the base of the Grand Canyon, and let's come right back out. It'll take us all night. We'll have a great time. It's 9 miles to the base of the Grand Canyon and 9 miles back, and it's only downhill one way. So Mike and I stopped at the local, store, and we buy some granola bars and we buy some water and all of that. Well, anyway, we didn't make it down to the bottom, not quite all the way. We stopped about a mile short, we ran out of water, and we had to make our way back. Highlight of the story is this. I will never forget this one event. One of my best friends. We're walking down the trail. It is pitch black outside. It is the most beautiful sky you have ever seen in your life. and the sound of nature is all around you. And what you hear in the middle of that, oh, Mike, there's a, we're like jumping around the path. There is a rattlesnake in the middle of the path. It's pitch black outside. We can't see it, but it's right underneath my feet. I was walking first down the path. So the story goes on. We start walking, again after hearing the rattlesnake. But Mike and I start talking. We're like, what would happen if we actually got bit? What actually happened? Mike is about maybe 160 pounds. I'm like 225. Like Mike is not going to carry me back to the ranger station. If Mike got bit, not a problem. I'm going to hoist him over my shoulder, and we're going to go back to 3 miles to the ranger station. But if I got bit, there's not a chance in the world. I'm a goner, Anyway, we made our way back out of the Grand Canyon. We read a book after that. Actually, Mike read this book. No one has ever died to this day of a rattlesnake bite in the Grand Canyon. Mike has taught me a very wonderful lesson in my life, and that is, you need to worry only about the things that are important. Don't worry about the things that don't matter. And I'm not sure if he's realized this, but he has taught me he has brought a wonderful calm to my spirit and to my person. And it's just one of the stories that has kind of exemplified that. Mike has a wonderful sense of sincerity. A person who is sincere is a person who is genuine. A person who knows themselves, and a person who will always speak the truth when you need to hear it most, and a person who is always present to bring you the joy or to bring you the consolation that you need at times you need it most. Mike Dane has been that for me, and I'm sure that Mike Dane will continue to be that for me as well. So Mike, I would like to speak most importantly about your sincerity. People have talked about your humbleness, your prudence, have talked about your humor, your love for Christ as a human. And I would just like to say that you as a person are someone who embodies all of those. And since you are sincere, you embody them all the time. And what you talk about, what you preach about is what you really believe. And what you show to me, to Joe, to your fellow seminarians, to your brother priests, is really what you are about. And I want to thank you. I think this is a wonderful day for you. Happy to share it with you.
This is Mike facing the community today, and it's kind of dark. Let me see. Yeah, these are all from the cathedral today. Tried to add a couple of them. But anyway, these are the priests in some of the seminarians that have been important to Mike, and I know he's important to all of you, and each of you could tell stories like they told of how he's impacted your life. I thought it better to mention how grateful we were to have him at our house last night on the night before ordination. And it was, I can't tell you how much that meant to have him there and just be around him. He's always a joy to be with. And last night after those couples left, Mike and Jen and I just got a chance to talk for a little bit. And then it was pretty late, and we're going off to bed, and everybody was leaving. And Mike said, I don't have an alarm clock. He said, would you make sure I get up tomorrow? And I said, yeah. I was up all night. I don't get up. So I got up, early, and I went in there and I just, knocked on the door, and I woke him up at 7:30. And I said, Mike, it's 7:30. It's time to get going. And I thought, gosh, it is. You're ready now. You're ready to get going, and you are well prepared to do that. You are such a great gift to the church, to the family, and to all of us. And the last one comes up. There's a parish. Should I pass it, Jen? Oh, yeah. There it is. St. Barnabas, how blessed you are. They will be so blessed to have you there. And we all know that you'll do very well there. So congratulations and best wishes to you. I think Mike's sister has something that she wanted us to play before Mike taught, so we're going to do that now.
Sometimes I go to the bridge in my backyard. It's where I go when I want to be alone and think about my life. Some days I'll face downstream and I'll watch as the water flows by. I'll watch it because through my feet and I'll think about the past. And I wonder about how things have changed and where my life has gone. And am I being the person that I want to be? And a dream is just a vessel that must follow where it goes. Striving to learn from what's behind, and never knowing what's in store, makes each day a constant battle, just to stay between the shore. I watch the children play, and I see how full of life and energetic they are. And I wonder where they have gone. These waters are my sky, I'll never reach my destination. If I never try, I will sail my best till the river runs dry. Other days I'll sit on the bridge and face off street, and I'll watch as the water flows away. And I'll see how it changes and moves. And I think about where my life is going to go, what I'm going to do, and how it's going to be. Say you're satisfied, choose the chance to battle, and dare to dance the tide. I think about all the other things that I could miss, and how I could just go on and pick one and expect to be there for the rest of my life. I think about being a if I being an artist, or maybe an architect. Right now I want that to be. There's boundary rough waters and the Lord takes the fall. With the Lord as my captain, I can make it through them all. And it is somewhat intimidating, but at the same time, there's so much wonder and excitement. I'm all thinking things that I can do. I yearn for that day when I can go back down to the bank and walk across it. And that's it. People thinking about the past or the future. I walk down thinking about the present and how I am shaping my life and how I am becoming the person that I've always wanted to be.
So today you can go back to the bridge, Michael, because here you are. I can never be more proud of you. I'm just so happy for you, and I just did a quick painting of the bridge. You can always go back to it. Now you can walk balanced, thinking about the present, how you shaped your life, and become the person you've always wanted to be.
It's amazing how all these people have spoken tonight know both sides of Mike. Father Dietrich, he lives on the edge. There's no question about that. And when you're 28 years old, there's not a whole lot you can do to change him, so good luck to you. But I know that the people of St. Barnabas will embrace him as he will them. About 3 years ago, we had a dinner at the seminary for the Lake and Geauga County Commission on Catholic Community Action. And the honoree of that dinner was Father Don Dunson, who was a member of the faculty at St. Mary's. And along with that, I bought a table for that dinner, which cost us $180. And I thought, the decent thing to do would be to invite some of the students that had traveled to Africa with Father Dunson. And along with that dinner, they had a silent auction. And unbeknownst to me, Michael Denk and some of his hoodlum friends at the seminary was signing my name up for items on the auction. And I paid $150 for this piece of crap. Everybody wanted an Indian maiden with a wolf coming out of her feet. And to add insult to injury, on one of his future trips to Africa, I got the statue of a naked lady standing on inverted turtles. That's the kind of friend Mike Denk is. You've not seen the end of these yet. Charlie, we need to talk. I know we've heard a lot tonight and had a lot of people talk, and I suppose the only decent thing to do is to turn the microphone over to Mike and I guess let him talk. So, Mike.
I think those are beautiful pieces of work. Those were hand-carved by poor children in Africa.
He had the nerve to criticize the art that I purchased for the seminary. His taste is all in his mouth.
But after I bought that lovely Indian statue, or had Brian won that for the auction, I told him at the end, I said, well, all the seminarians, we're going to pay for it. We'll give you the money for it. He said, the hell you are. He said, payback. Well, I'll get you sooner or later with this. I would just like to thank everybody for joining me here tonight. This has been such a blessing for me to share in this entire day with you. There are people that I've known here from birth, my parents, my family, my godparents, all the people from Holy Family, all the people from the old neighborhood, the people that I've gotten to know in the seminary. My seminary friends are all in the back there. My priest friends that I've gotten to know over these years. What a gift and what a joy it is to have all of you here tonight. To share in the laughter and the stories. I think one of the greatest gifts that has been given to me by you is you've helped me to see the good person that I am. You've helped me to really bring out the joy and the adventure. Some ways that's been discouraged, I know. but it has been brought out. And you've helped me to see my gift of compassion and my gift of gifts that I didn't even know I had. You've helped me to preach.
I remember the first time I had to give apostle at the seminary, I stood up in front of everybody and my left knee was shaking so hard that I couldn't get it to stop. I kept looking down to see if anybody would notice my knee shaking. I was so nervous. But again, they made me get up in front and do it. Ed Kachik, who's not here tonight, taught me how to play guitar. I loved music, and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I remember Father Wakoviak actually told me the first time I had a cantor, I got up there and cantor and totally bid in front of the whole community. And when you do that at the seminary, there's nothing worse because for the entire rest of the week, the guys make fun of you nonstop. So the first time I got done, I walked up and Father Wakoviak came up to me and said, "Michael, that was very good." I said, "I don't think it was." I go, "That's really not one of my best qualities." And he said to me, Jeff was the guy there, he said, "Well, Jeff didn't know how to play the piano when he got here. And now as he was leaving, he's this beautiful piano player." And I never forgot that. Ed Kachik taught me how to play guitar. I never knew how to play in the beginning, and I'll play a little bit tonight. I played piano again. I never got up in front of people and talked. I hated doing that. That's why I did video, because I could be behind the scenes the entire time and just edit. The seminary taught me to get up in front of people and to believe that I have gifts, to believe that I am this beautiful person, that I have this great life to offer to people in darkness. It has been such a joy for me to discover the person that God has created me to be. When I made that video, that was my first year at Cleveland State, and that was the first video project I actually did, and I think if you caught on, I kind of do things last minute. I did that video in 20 hours. Right before I had to turn it in, I thought up the whole thing and shot and turned it in the next day. And the funny thing is, I watched that now, and I was thinking about all the different things that I thought I wanted to do. Priesthood was always there in the back of my mind. And I remember when I shot that video, I thought about putting on a collar and doing that. But I never admitted to anybody that I thought about that call. So what a great night it was for me last night to be with Father John Betters and Father John's at the rectory and to share that wonderful time when that family did say that. He said, "When I see the three of you and how much fun you have and what a joy it is to be priests, I want my kids to be priests." And for me, I've gotten to see from all of these priests gathered here what a great life it is. What a truly joyful life it is, and what a blessing it is. Many of them have walked with me from the beginning. Some have joined me along the years, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for really shaping me into the person that I am today, for bringing out my gifts, for helping me to work through some of the things that I struggle with, and for helping me to channel this great adventure into the priesthood. Father Woost at my last evaluation, he said, "Michael, if you bring the love and the dedication that you have to prayer, if you do that for the priesthood, this will be a wonderful life for you." And I think as Joe Brancatelli said, "I'm going in this all hot. I'm on fire right now." And there couldn't be a better life that I would pick for myself. And I've come to see glimpses of that in the seminary. And I look forward to sharing in the priesthood with all of you. And I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for shaping me into the person that I am. I thank you so much, and you truly are a blessing in my life.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to acknowledge some of the folks who have been playing the piano up here during the social and the dinner hour. Barb Adams from St. John Vianney, Bob McMurray from St. Rita's in Solon, Bob Vernian, I don't know if Bob's played yet, but he will before the evening's up, from St. Mel's, I think, in Cleveland, and Julie Brown from St. Ambrose in Brunswick, and also at Annunciation in Cleveland. So a round of applause for them. After we have a closing prayer, there are a number of students from the seminary who are going to be up here playing guitars and piano and whatever. If you feel like singing or dancing or whatever you want to do, you want to take a hold of the microphone, help yourself. I would like to now ask Father John Barana to lead us in a closing prayer for this evening.
And let us pray. Our most good and gracious God, how can we thank you for the
blessing of this day. From sunrise to sunset, again and again and again, each of us has experienced so much of your love, so many signs. To be gathered in the cathedral, the ordination service, to share in the Eucharist with our brother Mike, as truly he celebrates his first priestly Mass with the bishop. To gather here this afternoon and this evening for this outstanding celebration of life, of love, of giftedness. How can we thank you? It all comes from you in many different ways, from many different people. The centerpiece of all of this, of course, is your servant, your son, Father Mike. And we thank you for the gift that he is to us. How can we thank you for so much and for such a precious gift? The only thing that we can do, if we truly believe that we have been so blessed today, and we do want to thank you, then, loving God, we pledge to support Father Mike each and every day in whatever way we can, at all times, to be there for him, to affirm him, to rejoice with him, to cry with him, to be his extended family, to be his brothers and sisters. And in all of this, express our gratitude to you for what he is to us. We offer you our thanks and gratitude. Most gracious and loving God, Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.
Father Verona next week will celebrate the 40th anniversary of his ordination to the priesthood. Father Verona, congratulations. Let that 12 of you that St. Francis de Sales and Parma, y'all come. Mike, know that as we leave here tonight and send you forth to the people of St. Barnabas, you go with the love and support of everyone gathered here and those who were not able to make it. And to Bob and Dee, we are grateful to you for all of this, and to all of Mike's family. God bless you. Stay and enjoy the rest of the evening.
We're
you can enjoy the music, enjoy the booze. I know I did in the 70s, gave it up, got in trouble.
Mr. President,
Sorry about that.
what exactly are you doing to help the poor in the third world countries?
Well, I'm helping Democrats take the charge. That's what I do. I give them work. Mike Dink.